Hi, fourth graders. Today we're going to continue our lessons that are going to lead to us writing our own narrative. The last couple days, hopefully you watched Brain Pops on dialogue and did some practice with dialogue, as well as watch the Brain Pop show versus telling. Again, another way, we can show versus telling by using strong adjectives, by using vivid verbs, by using our figurative language, such as metaphors and similes. And then dialogue really brings characters to life because we get to see and hear their personality through the spoken word, what they're saying, how they're saying it. Today we're going to just review real quickly plot structure. In your own homeroom classes, your teachers read Fireflies and you went through and put the story on the plot. So when I call this a roller coaster, it could be a mountain, how the story begins, rises, begins to fall, and ends. So let's quickly review. We have the exposition, which is the beginning of a story, introducing character and setting. So in this book, the boy is eating dinner on a summer evening and asks his parents if he can go outside to catch fireflies. So our story begins. And then we go to the next item, which is rising action. And rising action is a series of events after the exposition that build toward the point of greater interest. Motives are revealed. A majority of the action happens here. And this is true with fireflies. The boy goes out, he goes downstairs into the cellar, he gets a jar to catch the fireflies in, he dashes outside and joins his neighborhood friends to catch fireflies. They're all excited, and then the night ends and they go home and they all have a jar of fireflies. And now we move up the roller coaster of the mountain and we hit the climax. And this is the greatest tension, a turning point in a story. And the main character might be involved in conflict and issues, something he or she needs to work through. And the boy in the story, he's in bed and he's watching these fireflies glow and he feels happy, but then all of a sudden he noticed that their light begins to dim. And so here we see he's got this internal conflict about what's happening. And we head down and we go to our falling action. And these are the events that happen after the climax. And the main problem begins to be resolved. And there's a release of tension. So the boy, realizing that the fireflies' lights are being dimmed, that they're struggling and they need to be released. And so he lets the fireflies out of the jar and he goes to the window and he sets them free. And then we head to the final part of our plot structure, which is the conclusion/resolution. And we have our author tying up loose ends. The solution is clear and there's a closure and the main character might be reflective. And so we have our main character watching the fireflies dart into the sky and he notices that they look like stars in the sky. So we're ending on this bittersweet note. He's a little bit happy and a little bit sad. So that's just a quick review of plot structure, because when you move to write your own narrative, you're going to be following this plot structure. You'll be thinking about the exposition, the rising action, the climax, the falling action, conclusion, and you're going to at first fill out your own plot structure before even writing. So we're going to take a look at sort of our mentor exemplar story that we're going to use called Those Wacky Shoes. And let me just give you an overview of what this looks like. So here's the first page, and it carries over a little onto the second page. What I really want you to notice is how much dialogue is included in this story. You didn't really get to see this with Fireflies because it's a picture book, whereas this is a story that's just in a document, so you really get to see all of the dialogue. And remember, each time a new person speaks, we have a new paragraph. And I'm going to delete, and when I hit tab, we create an indent. So we know that's the beginning of a new paragraph. And so as I read this, I want you to be thinking about how many paragraphs are involved and how many times we have dialogue, because you're going to be modeling your writing after this. So really pay attention. So, Those Wacky Shoes by Julie Parker Emery. I thought it was going to be an ordinary Saturday, but boy was I wrong. I bought some shoes at a thrift shop downtown. They were blue and red checkered slip-on sneakers. Unusual. I like them. I put them on outside the store. I got ready to turn right toward home, but my feet turned left. It was as if those wacky shoes were in control. I tried to stop to take them off, but my feet wouldn't let me. I quickly realized that those shoes were going to take me wherever they wanted. The shoes walked me up Main Street, nice and slow. After a few blocks, they turned my feet left up Pine Street. They started picking up speed. I passed a woman walking a beagle. She looked at my shoes and said, "Did you get those shoes at the second-hand store downtown?" "Yep, I hurried along at the pace of a speed walker." "I was stuck in those shoes once," she said. "They took me all the way to Vermont." "How'd you get out of them?" I shouted over my shoulder. By now, I was running. "You have to outsmart them," she yelled back. And she said something else, but by then I was too far away to hear. Great, I thought. Someone tells me to outsmart a pair of shoes, and I can't. This doesn't speak well for my brain. We turned up a dirt path, heading straight for a huge oak. I put my hands over my face, certain I'd smash right into that tree. But my feet started climbing up the trunk. I grabbed the trunk with both hands to keep my balance. We went higher and higher. Did I mention that I don't like heights much? I tried not to look down. I kept going, my heart pounding like a giant hammer in my chest, when suddenly my feet slipped. So those shoes weren't perfect after all. I grabbed a branch with both hands and hung. It was sure high up there. Somehow I managed to pull myself up to sit on a branch. My feet were still. It seemed that when they weren't on something solid, those shoes weren't quite as tough. I tried to pull one off, but it was latching on with all its might. Now, what should I do? The good thing about being stuck in the tree was that I had time to think up a wild idea. I started yelling. Since I was in the middle of nowhere, I had to yell for what seemed like 100 years. Finally, a kid rode up on his bike. "Can you do me a favor?" I called. "Can you get someone to bring a big bucket of wet cement? It would really help me out." "We've got cement mix in our garage," he said. "I can make some and bring it to you." And off, and it should be, and off he went, just like that. I like a kid who doesn't ask a lot of questions. Eventually, the kid came back, walking this time, and pulling a rusty wagon behind him. The wagon was filled with wet cement. "Hey, thanks," I said. "Now I'm going to start coming down the tree. I want you to put the wagon right under my feet when I get low enough to jump. Got it?" He nodded, and I set to work on shimmying from the branch to branch, careful not to let my feet touch anything. I didn't want the shoes to take over again. When I was on the lower branch, I jumped. My feet went lurp as they hit the wet cement. "Now, can you find a couple of strong people?" I asked. I stood there in the cement while he was gone, my stomach feeling all twisty. I was scared and excited at the same time. The boy returned with another boy and a girl. They looked at me strangely, but I just said, "Could you yank me out?" They grabbed under my arms and pulled. My plan worked. The cement held those shoes in place, and I came out of them. I was free. "Thanks, guys," I said. "I guess your shoes are stuck in there forever," the girl said. "It's okay. I was done with them anyway," I remarked. Then the wagon started rolling down the path. It gathered speed, took a left when it went to the road, went steadily up the hill, and was soon out of sight. I sure hope these wacky shoes know how to drive. All right, so this is a story, a narrative that we're going to use as an example. But what I think is really important is that you guys take the time to figure out what is the exposition of this story, what's the rising action, the climax, and the falling action, finally the conclusion and resolution. So you can really see how the story flows. Then we're going to move to you either writing a story about your own wacky shoe experience, which might be a fun introduction into narrative writing. However, we know that some of you are pretty excited to write your own narrative from your own imagination or from your own experience, and we want to honor that as well. But you're going to need to be able to think about, well, what's my beginning, middle, my climax, my falling, and my end. So today what you're going to do is you are going to fill out the plot structure for Wacky Shoes. And then from there, the next step that we will have is another blank plot structure sheet for you in order to begin brainstorming and filling out this graphic organizer for you to begin your narrative writing. Oh, and I'm back one more time. I want to go back to this because I really want you guys to pay attention to how many times somebody speaks. And this is really important. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add to our daily check-ins a space for you guys to let us know how many indents / paragraphs there are and how many times a character speaks, because it's really important that your characters have the time to talk, have a voice, develop them. So just wanted to add that on before I sign out today. So I want you to pay attention to that. And I also want you to fill out the plot structure sheet that goes through this story. All right, get to it.